Welcome to the Drive Able podcast, where we discuss all things about driving and safer community transport for people with disabilities and medical conditions. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you've subscribed to our channel and follow us on the socials. Just search Drive Able Podcast. We've got a lot of content now with lots of interviews, so make sure you go back and have a listen to some of our older episodes. G'day, Ali.
Hey Brad, yeah, this episode is going to be a great one. We have Jamien Hudson on. Jamien is a user of high-level driving controls from Fadiel, and I guess we're both probably going to be pretty excited for this one because we've, as a lot of people know, we've spoken a lot about Fadiel high-level controls and the van going around the country and people trialing things, but no one actually who's a user. So I'm really excited actually to hear about that experience and how they got into it. And on top of that, which we'll share some of the links afterwards as well. Jamien is also a Instagram influencer, and he does some pretty cool like drone photography around WA on the coastline, and saves it on his Instagram with his wheelchair vehicle and so on. So we're really interested to hear more about that as well, and how he does it with his disability. So let's get into it. Brad, are you ready for this?
Yeah, I'm excited to meet this guy and have a good quality chat with him. Let's find out.
Yeah, let's do it. Driving is something many take for granted, but when someone has altered ability, then driving or getting out and about in your own car can be challenging. Driving with a disability doesn't mean you have to drive an old clapped out car with farm-like machinery, and relying on a wheelchair doesn't mean waiting for hours and then being in the back of a maxi access cab getting car sick. The Drivable podcast is designed to introduce and explore driving aids for people with disabilities, vehicle modifications, the NDIS, research, medical guidelines, driving techniques, and much, much more. The Drivable podcast is to help you be informed and be in control of your own independence so you can experience freedom through driving safely and reliably. I'm Ali, and with me is Brad, and together we have over 30 years of experience in disability and driving. Enough of the intros, let's get into it. Okay, in this episode we are talking with Jamien, and Jamien, let's kick off first and introduce yourself by telling us a bit about your disability, what it actually is, and how we came about it.
For sure, man. Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be tomato, but it's Jamien, actually.
Okay, no, cool. No, excellent. I was a bit worried about that.
No, you're right, mate. Not too many people get it right. But yeah, Jamien Hudson. I live in Esperance, Western Australia, which is on the south coast of WA, and I'm a C5-6 quadriplegic due to the result of a motorbike accident when I was 17 years old. I'm now 31 at the end of this week, and have managed to have a very good life. I'm married, I have a child, been very lucky to have success with aerial photography, and I run a business. But the one thing that kind of escaped me for the last 13 years was driving until recently.
Yeah, righto. So tell us a little bit about, how did you get around in the last 13 years since your accident?
Support workers primarily, and then family. So we have a Toyota Hiace van that has a wheelchair lift and everything in the back of it, and still have that. And my wife would drive me, or my mum or friend or something like that, but primarily family. And then support workers, I would have support workers come in and drive me places.
Were you also driving a car as well as riding a motorbike at that time? Like, did you have the ability?
I did have my driver's license. Yes. Yeah.
So I guess what took you so long to get back behind the wheel?
I got my driver's license when I was, I'm going to say 24, 25. I don't know exactly, but my mum slide boarded me into the driving instructor's car in Perth, which is about 8 hours away from where I live. And we would go up there for like 2-week blocks. And we slide boarded me in and out of this car multiple times. And the lady insisted on, she was a lovely lady, but insisted on the spinner knob being on the top of the steering wheel. And I would get just such fatigue in my left arm as we would drive down the road. And I just couldn't do it for long periods of time. And eventually, after me persisting, I was like, can I please try it on the bottom of the steering wheel? Put it on the bottom of the steering wheel. It was like night and day. So then when we were going along a straight road, I could rest my arm, you know what I mean? As opposed to trying to hold it there. So then eventually managed to get my driver's license, which the guy really put me through my paces. I was reverse parking, parallel parking, all sorts of parking in the city, but passed. But then there was not a huge amount of point in me getting a vehicle like a Commodore or whatever that had hand controls, because I'm unable to transfer independently. I have no triceps working. So stuck in my wheelchair, I guess, without the assistance. But, you know, if you're getting slide boarded into a car by someone else, I thought, what's the point? I guess they could just drive me somewhere in a van, you know? So modification costs of a vehicle that I've ended up with, astronomical, to be honest with you. It's a huge amount of money, and it took quite a long time to come up with that money. You know, this was not NDIS provided or anything like that, so it took some time to get the funds together. And but now I drive a car with a high level of modifications done to it, but I'm able to do that independently. I can get myself in and out of the vehicle, no problem, go to where I need to go. It works fantastically.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear more about the high level, because we've spoken, I don't know if Brad said to you before, but we have spoken quite a fair bit about the Fadiel high level controls on this podcast, but we haven't met anyone that's a user of them. So it's really exciting. Cool. And also one question before we get onto that was, why not NDIS? So
that's
well, NDIS is relatively new, you know what I mean? So and my understanding is I don't know how willing they are to fund something that costs that amount of money, you know what I mean? The modifications were $195,000 plus the car, you know what I mean? So you're looking at a huge amount of money.
Was that modified in Sydney?
Partially, yeah, and then the remaining bit was done in Perth,
with Freedom.
Yeah, and they were amazing, you know what I mean? There's no worries there. In all honesty, it took quite a long time, but it was a bit disappointing. But at the same time, I understand that it's a big modification. But Troy in particular, I sing his praises. He was very good, very, very knowledgeable, and assisted a lot. So he was great.
Yeah, he gets really good raps, and we've dealt with him. He's a really good guy. And I have so many questions. I'm just trying to figure out which one.
Yeah. I'm with you. There's so many questions. I'm intrigued about the NDIS funding and why didn't you explore that? But you're right. You would have run into a whole lot of hurdles along the way compared to using, your own funds to be able to do it. And we've got to keep in mind that the NDIS is much newer in Western Australia than it is in New South Wales and in South Australia, where Ali and I are from as well. So
that's right. You guys have had it for a while, haven't you? Yeah. So we've only had it here for maybe 2 years, I'd say.
Yeah.
And the ball was already rolling, you know what I mean, by the time.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I guess that's also makes sense to our conversations, because a lot of like what you said, it takes a very long time. And most of the people that we have spoken to, they're in the process right now of getting their NDIS funding or whatever. And it's like, a year or a year and a half in, and they're still kind of trialing and learning and so on. So it is a very long process, a multi-year process that you just go through. So it's, that's good to know, I guess.
Yeah, no, and I couldn't fault the NDIS. I mean, since I've been on it, it's been fantastic. You know what I mean? There's no issue at all there. Yeah. And no, the vehicle itself is better than I could have expected, to be honest with you. I mean, when I'm in the back of a Toyota Hiace, I guess because it's got commercial suspension, leaf suspension, I'm hanging on for dear life. And it's like, I was like, how on earth am I going to hang on and drive a car? But the Volkswagen multivan is just so smooth. I can have both hands able to drive. I just wear a seatbelt. I thought I'd have to wear a chest strap, but I don't have to do that, which was surprising to me. And I mean, obviously, when I first started driving it, I wasn't doing that good. Like I drove okay, but it just took a little while to get better with it. And then now I'm confident, and I've done 15,000 Ks as of today. And
awesome.
We took it up to X now, which is 2,000 kilometers from where I live. I drove all the way up there, not in one go or anything, but so no, I've gotten quite good at it, and it's the vehicle is amazing.
So how did you come across this conversion and having this stuff, and I guess trying it out? Tell us a little about that process.
Yeah.
I guess
so
you're not on NDIS, so it might be slightly different to most people.
Yeah. So from driving my original car, the one that had the just regular hand controls in it, was a Kia, and they would lighten the power steering because I know they had another car that had regular power steering in it, and I couldn't turn that all that well. And then eventually I ended up realizing that I'd need to drive from wheelchair setup, obviously not being able to transfer. So I tried one where the wheelchair would go right up to the front, but then I still couldn't turn the steering wheel. So then there's not many of the trial vehicles in Australia, none permanently in WA. But what they did was they had one over here from Queensland. So I met Troy at my sister's house. We tried it out and realized that one worked. I managed to drive pretty good within a short amount of time. Very short amount of time. I was going around roundabouts and around the block instantly. So then it was like, this is what I need. And then we went down the pathway there. And I should point out, Job Access were amazing in helping modify mine as well. You know what I mean? So even though we didn't do the NDISC, Job Access helped me. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Job Access, for those, from what I understand, those listening that are not from WA, is, I guess, the WA version of NDIS previously. Is that right?
No, they just help with getting the vehicle so that I can operate it for work. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So, yeah. So
no
it's something that I needed for the aerial photography, and I mean, since having it for work, it's like night and day. I can go and get myself over to the boat if I need to. And it's amazing, really. Yeah.
Did you have any OTs or anything part of that process? Or
Yeah. So that's a massive part of it, particularly with Job Access, because they need to make sure it's not someone taking the piss. You know what I mean? Like you need to be shown that it will assist you. And I had a lady come down here to Esperance, and she checked out the situation and obviously thought that it would be a viable aspect to assist me. And she was great. I don't remember the company or anything like that, but her name was Jamie, and she went out of her way. She did everything really properly and professionally. And I was grateful that she saw that it was a good, it would be a good fit for me.
I've got a bunch of questions to break that down a little bit more. And let's start discovering what you're actually driving with. You said that you're driving a Volkswagen multivan. How do you, and you drive from your wheelchair? For people listening, how are you actually getting into the van independently and getting into that driving position? What's your process?
Yeah, cool. So look, there is an underbody hoist that comes out of the side of the vehicle. So I opted not to go for a rear entrance. The benefit of a rear entrance one is you can park in any old parking bay, but then you lose the back seats, you know what I mean? So you basically got a van, but it's a shell really, which is pointless with a family and everything like that. So went for the side entry, which has been really good, particularly nowadays. I feel like disabled bays are getting wider. And I had very few, I can't even recall one instance where I've had a problem parking it, so that's been good. So
that's a cassette lifter? That's a cassette lifter. It's like a drawer that comes out underneath the car.
Yeah. And we went for the underbody one just for more internal space. You do lose clearance underneath the vehicle, which I guess is a trade-off. But it's been great for me. So basically the drawer lift comes out, comes straight down onto the ground. I wheel up on it, and then it lifts me up, and I wheel straight into the cab. I then have like a docking pin underneath my wheelchair, and I've got a power assist wheelchair. So power assist wheels attached to a titanium tie-light wheelchair. So basically it's similar to manual. Drive straight up to the driver's seat, and it docks me in automatically. And then I have a backrest that swings around. I use a little switch on the dash. Backrest swings around behind me, which is a really fantastic support. I didn't, once again, I was like, I don't think I'm going to need that, but I've tried driving. I've forgotten to flick it around a few times when I first started driving, and you feel much less, balance in the wheelchair. So then
is that the, just to interrupt, that's the thing that comes behind you and it's supposed to kind of protect you from a crash, right?
Yep. So
I just wanted to kind of highlight that for the listeners because it's something which is not that common in the industry. And I guess me being a safety engineering nerd, I push that a lot. And it's great to hear that you're actually getting some like ongoing benefit and support benefit because it's one that is very hard, I guess, quote unquote, sell to the community because it's not something that often people think is needed. Like you said, they don't think about it. But I guess from an engineering point of view, I can see the real benefits from a crash safety and support point of view. So it's great that you've recognized that as well.
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't drive without it. Yeah, that's for sure. I think it's fantastic. And then the seatbelt is on obviously my left-hand side, and it comes up about to the height of my wheel on my left wheel, and I just get the seatbelt over and then like grip it in my teeth, pull it a bit more, grip it in my teeth, pull it a bit more until eventually I chuck it in the seatbelt clasp and just click it down. And then vehicle is push button start, and I flick another switch on the left-hand side, which then turns on the Fadiel steering controls. They take, I think, about 30 seconds to fire up. And then voice-activated indicators, windows voice-activated as well, up and down. And then, of course, these days, window wipers, lights are all automatic on sensors, so that's a massive help. Sometimes I find if I have music on or something, indicators are less sensitive, obviously. If there's no sound in the car and I'm in there on my own, they work perfectly every single time. It's just
even with your Aussie, even with your Aussie accent.
Yeah, that works fine. But then the beauty about European car Volkswagen is if I do need to manually indicate, I never have to take my hand out of the steering because that's on the right-hand side. It would just be, out of the accelerator and the brake, which if you've got a long way to a corner and you're just rolling, it's not down a hill or something, then that seems to work fine as well. But 90% of the time I'm using the voice activated indicators. And then right-hand side is a tiny little steering wheel, I guess, is a kind of a way to explain it to people, but it's basically a little spinner knob on the right-hand side that then turns the big steering wheel, and on the left-hand side, push forward to brake and pull back to accelerate, which at first I was like, man, I'd find it easier if I could pull back to brake and push forward to accelerate. But if you fall forward, you push your foot on the brake, which is a much, much better idea, because a couple of times I have fallen forward. So it's better to come to a halt than go careering off into someone.
It's a safety requirement of the standard as well. That the brakes have to be in the direction of the forward motion of the car. So for that very reason,
So for people listening in, some of the technical things that Jamien's spoken about, the little steering wheel on the right-hand side, in the industry, it's called a mini wheel, a mini steering wheel. And what it does is like Jamien says, the steering wheel spins around in front of you, doesn't it? And it goes to the left and right. And it looks like you're not using your hands on the steering wheel at all, but that's down at elbow level for you to be able to grip to. Is your one on the left-hand side, your brake and accelerator, is that electronic or is it a mechanical lever down to the brake lever?
No, it's electronic. Yeah.
So that's a really high-end control for people listening in. That's extremely lightweight compared to actually pressing your brake pedal with your foot. Yours is electronic, so it's got no mechanical feedback. It's all electronic, all nice and light. And makes
it really does allow me to drive safely, independently. You know what I mean? The controls are fantastic. Yeah, and the whole installation and everything has been done really well. You open up the door and you wouldn't know unless I know or tell people that the floor's been lowered from I believe it's the B pillar, basically the back set of seats all the way forward to allow head height for me in my wheelchair. The fit out is exceptional. Yeah,
that's really good.
And so you originally drove in when you were 24 with the controls around the other way, though. Is that right? So you had
I did.
With your left hand.
Yeah. I don't know. It was never discussed to do it the other way, to be honest with you. So I don't know how it ended up that way. But now I can't imagine it being any other way. I guess the one I trialed was this way. On the right-hand side was the steering. But yes, you are right. I was driving left hand with the steering wheel prior. And I found that quite good. The push pat, was the system I had, I believe they call it. So push in to brake and then pat down to accelerate. And that worked very well actually in the vehicle. And I imagine the technology's probably only got better since then. So there's probably newer things.
Yeah, that's probably one of the most common hand controls in the country, that push pat.
Yeah.
And then how do you find that the voice? I'm interested in the voice recognition stuff. Do you, as you said, is it like reliable?
Yeah. It's only
you're using it all the time. Like you're encouraged to use it all the time.
Yeah. And particularly if you have no music on and it's just when you're conversing with someone else, there has to be, I believe, a 2 second or 1 second break in conversation for it to realize that you're talking to the steering, or sometimes you just have to raise your voice and speak louder. So it's only when you're chatting with other people and then you're like, say, I'm like, oh yeah, look over there, and then turn left, and the car won't recognize that turn left. So you have to like kind of wait a second and say turn left and indicate. But I just had to angle the microphone a little bit more down towards my the direction of my mouth. But no, it works really well. Yeah.
So what do you think is the additional things or extra things that you can do as a result of these high level controls compared to what you had before? Like how much has your world grown?
Oh mate, I mean, just independence. You could just scream that over and over again. Like I am able to do stuff that, I mean, people would be like, oh, it must be like when you got your license again when you're 17. I'm like, no, because I used to be able to ride my bike somewhere or walk somewhere, but now, like, I can get in a car and go 20 kilometers from my house and get out. Like, I mean, I'm a quadriplegic that is reliant on people to get me out of bed, shower me, everything like that. But then when I'm in my car, I'm free. So it's just amazing. I go droning on my own so I can go and do some filming. It really is the best thing that's happened to me independence-wise since my accident. Absolutely. That's
awesome to hear. Actually, we'll put some links up to give you a bit of promo, but I have seen, that's actually how I kind of came across you. I think someone from Freedom or something sent a shot, also a video of you next to your car, I think, somewhere along the coastline. And there's a drone, and you're doing a bit of drone photography and stuff. And it's got it. Yeah. It's bloody awesome. And that video is awesome. And I was like, I want to speak to this guy because it looks like he's I guess using this control to its potential. Getting out there, getting remote, and I guess living a somewhat standard life of what people are doing seems to be really
inspiring. And I mean, it's just like takes a lot of pressure off of the people around me as well. Like it's a big task for I work till 5 or whatever, and then I'd be like ringing my wife who's trying to look after our at the time baby or whatever, and then I'm like, oh, can you come and get me? So then she'd have to put everything in the car, come down and get me, you know what I mean? Whereas now I finish work, I come home, if I need to assist, I can take him for a drive or something like that, and as he eventually goes to school, I'll be able to pick him up from school. So I mean, that's from a personal side of things, but from a side of point of view as well, just being able to, if I need something from Bunnings, I can go out there. Or I still can't even believe sometimes that I'm driving a car around. Like there was such a long time to not have that independence.
Do you think that, because you were saying before also you're I guess operating and running a pretty sort of complex, sophisticated business that does a bunch of other things, bunch of unrelated stuff, do you think that your car is key to that, running that business? Do you think like you wouldn't be able to have that business if you didn't have the car?
Well, look, I mean, we did operate it for a long time without it, but since then, for example, the other day, some people needed something down at the units, you know what I mean? So I jump in the car and I come down here and I meet them, I get them checked in, or I can get something else for them. Whereas before, I used to be able to ring taxis, but now Esperance doesn't have a wheelchair taxi anymore. So, there's just, that's happened since I've had my vehicle. But I mean, I'd be buggered without it now. You know what I mean? Like obviously family, once again, running me around, or support workers, but it's absolutely integral to the operating of the business now. It's one of those things though, like you did it for such a long time, But then once you've got something like this, I'm like, I don't know how we ever did, really.
Yeah. But I just wonder also, that's why I was thinking if their business kind of grew as a result, because you're able to be a bit more efficient and be a bit more involved,
Maybe not yet, but I've only had it like 2 months, you know what I mean? So,
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so it's super fresh still. Yeah. So it was only later, not that long ago that
the business or the car?
The car.
Well, let's get you super busy. Give yourself a plug. Get yourself. Tell us about.
So we operate Esperance diving and fishing, Esperance Island cruises, and have accommodation in Esperance. So yeah, we're very involved in the tourism industry and really enjoy getting people out on the water down here. And then obviously I sell my prints and calendars, and I license my footage for the droning side of you. Like I sort of specialize more in wildlife footage. Right. That having a vehicle for that has increased my capacity hugely, in particular, because now I can drive around the coastline and look for wildlife, whereas before I'd have to ask someone else to do it for me. So
yeah, and where you live, Esperance, which, as I was saying before we started, is pretty bloody amazing anyway for scenery and shots. So yeah, getting out there and probably even being able to drive 20-30 minutes from the city will probably get you some pretty good footage, so
yeah. I mean, I do the tourist loop pretty much every morning before work, which is about 42 Ks, looking for wildlife. And it's even good just, I think, for people's mental health. Like because I mean, you got to think I got carers with me from 7 a.m. in the morning. So like I've got no alone time ever, really. I get to work, there's people there, which I'm happy to have people around me. But at the same time, when I used to get a lift somewhere, even when I'm in the car, there's people with me. But now like there's that 5 minutes of like, it's just me. It's driving.
I can feel that one because I've been in lockdown in Sydney for the last 15 weeks, and I'm dying for some alone time because I've been stuck with everyone in the house, so 100% understand that one.
The people that are funding modifications, whether it's job access or NDIS and so forth, they need to listen to that, and that's vital. I mean, we had an interview where a guy has got his hand controls a bit like you, but can't get the wheelchair in and out of his car, but the ability to actually get in his car, go for a drive, go through the McDonald's drive-through, get himself a burger and a drink or whatever, just by himself, have that independence, even if he needs somebody at the other end to get his wheelchair in and out. That's his story. But for you, you've got that next level of independence, and people need to listen to that meaning, not just the cost, but what does it actually mean to somebody? And it sounds like it's going to mean the world to you in the next coming months as you get to enjoy it.
It definitely means the absolute world. Yeah. It's you can't even put it into words, really. It's incredible. Yeah.
Well, it actually would be maybe it would be pretty cool to maybe catch up in like 6 months to a year and get like a bit of a synopsis of like how it's been going in your life and in town and things like that. That'd be pretty cool.
No, that'd be great.
Really, like, I guess you over the next, as you said, you've had it for 2 months, so over the next year, you'll probably really start to understand where it's grown your world as such. So but initial reports are really good, which is awesome to hear. And it's
and I don't imagine you'll get any bad ones. Particularly now there's no wheelchair taxi. I mean, now I can go around to a friend's house or something like that, catch up with them.
He's lost all your business.
Obviously can't. Well, there was already on the out before that, but I think the rules have changed over here, where if you have a taxi company, you used to have to have one on the road, but they changed that, so now they don't put them on the road anymore.
But it's great to hear also the stuff about the high-end controls, because and I guess what I want to encourage people, because this is one of the aims of the show, is to be inspired by other people that have developed success. And I think that in talking to people, high-level controls can be very easy to be turned off, because there are definitely a lot of barriers. Like you got to drive far to get testing, and takes ages to do the trials and the lessons and all that. But I guess it's awesome to hear the end story from yourself, that it's worth it, and like the mental health and all of those things. So yeah, I guess I just want to encourage people that are on that journey or thinking about that high-level stuff. If it seems like it's a bit too hard, just go through it, because on the other end, you'll be successful. So
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. It was a very long, drawn out process. You know what I mean? Like, because you'd go trial the one van that, you know, I couldn't get the wheelchair right up to, but then it had a normal steering wheel, and then all of a sudden I'm trying this other one in this story. But in reality, it's like 5 months later. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, it's not an instant thing by any means, but it's definitely worth it in the long run. That's for sure.
Yeah, and easily people can get turned off by those long processes. So it's just encouraging people to see that, look, there is success out there to do that. So so I guess if there's nothing else to add, Brad, should we wrap it up with our final question?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't let people get away without this final question, Ali. So yeah, fire away with it.
Yeah, so we know that cars are more than getting from A to B. What is something that you use your car for, or something that you've done in or with your car that is unusual or nobody else knows about? Share it with us.
He's only done 15,000 kilometers in it so far. So
oh man, I don't know. Like I fly my drone from inside my car a lot, so I fly it from the floor out the door, and then attempt to land it back in the car. But the first time I clipped the side of it, so crashed that. But just you know, go and all sorts of stuff, mate. But the main, like, you know, the first time I went to Bunnings and just picked up some batteries or something like that for work, I cried because I was like, I can't believe I'm taking myself to Bunnings with no one else with me, you know? Yeah. So it's just that independence, really.
Yeah. How awesome is that? Jamien, thank you so much for joining us. And if people wanted to get in contact with you, is there some way that they can do that? Or do you want to give a plug to your
just
companies?
Search my name. Just search my name on Instagram, Jamien Hudson. And particularly if you have questions, you know what I mean? If there's people out there with a disability that want to get into driving, I'd love to help you because I know what it's done for me. And to see someone else in a similar situation find the freedom that I have, then I'd love to get involved and help out. So just send me a message on there.
Yeah, no worries. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely to meet you. Lovely to chat to you. Yeah. I really hope that you can get out and do some amazing things beyond what you're already doing with your photography and so forth, and with your drone and the world's your oyster with that new car. So good luck to you and see you on the road. Yeah,
thanks so much, guys. Nice to meet you both. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll definitely hit you up when I'm in Esperance because I'm going to bring the family out there. I've been promising them, so maybe we'll go on a tour or something.
Yeah, man, sounds awesome.
Yeah, same here. It's going to be great. All right, mate. Cheers. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. See ya. Bye. Driving is something many take for granted.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the section where we break down our interview and come away with our top 3 takeaways from the interview. First of all, a massive thank you to Jamien for joining us in the interview. There's so much that we could reflect on, but our top 3, number 1 is the freedom and independence that comes from actually having these controls. Ali, you were reflecting about the mental health side of it all.
Yeah, definitely. I guess is something that he mentioned specifically towards the end of the conversation around how that that mental health aspect, having that ability to sort of get some time to yourself. And as I said, we've all kind of realized that during these lockdowns, how that's important. And I guess, to be honest, that was a theme that he mentioned many times throughout the conversation, and he kind of got excited about every time he mentioned it, around that whole, I've got my independence and I can do this and I can do that. And there were so many examples of everyday menial tasks to you and I that I still, after all these interviews, I take for granted. He's sitting there and having a cry about going to Bunnings, you know, and we're sitting here going, oh, Bunnings is closed, you know, like it's just such a different perspective. And it's awesome that he's really highlighted that and identified that as well.
Absolutely. And I like I said through the interview, we really need the people that are approving the funds through the NDIS or whoever it might be, Job Access, to really take note of that, how much these little things like getting a packet of batteries from Bunnings actually means to somebody, and how important that actually is. And that's our number 1 takeaway from today, is that freedom and independence and how much impact that has on mental health.
It will
Number
also have a financial benefit as well, because he mentioned, for example, he doesn't have to have a taxi, or he doesn't like, he can go and address issues with his business immediately, like maintenance issues and stuff like that. So what that will mean ultimately is that he's going to make more profit, and then he's going to pay more taxes, and then the government is going to get more money. So from a financial point of view, this is also far more beneficial to the NDIS and job access than him not having this stuff.
Well, that's dot point number 2 was actually the growth in his business. So we've kind of melded these together. But You're absolutely right. The cost benefit to the NDIS for the lack of support workers to be able to get him, now it's just getting him in and out of bed, and then he's independent from there on, where before he needed to have support workers to drive him anywhere. And that's going to be a massive cost saving over the lifetime to the NDIS for those support workers. But like you said, he's going to be paying more taxes, because there's a real good chance that he's going to increase his business now, whether it's his photography, his drone photography, or whether it's his units. He's be able to do more for his units, be able to on-sell them better, maybe save some staff there, but also create more income for himself, more taxes that way. But then also in regards to the business where he's got the cruises out into the ocean, maybe that business will grow too.
Yeah. No, I very much think so. And he already had the sort of things around that. So yeah, look, that's also, again, another perfect reason why you need to get out there and get independent and try these products, because it opens your world and, opportunities and business and expansion and all those things. It's awesome to see.
Well, that takes us into dot point number 3. Our third takeaway is the trial. We just want to reflect on that for these high level controls, it can be a really long time to be able to bring it all together. I know that I'm working with a client right now, and it's just ticking over 2.5 years it's coming up to since he did his trials. And we actually proved that these similar types of high-end controls are the way forward for him. So that's 2 years since he actually did the trials, and he's about to get his car and experience the same freedom that Jamien's experiencing now. It can be a long time, but what we want to reflect on is that it actually wasn't that long ago that we had no options like this really at all, or you used to have to travel yourself to Sydney to do these trials, or it was much more difficult, and it's come a long way since the introduction of NDIS.
Yeah, huge. And even just those high-end controls just even being available. I mean, he has been around with this situation for 13 years, but only in the last 5 or 6 years has this stuff really come onto the market, and he started to kind of try and grab access to it. And clearly only in the last few years, he's really started to be able to kind of touch point it. And as he said at the end of the interview, it's only been 2 months since he's had the vehicle. So, but he started it well before NDIS was rolled out in WA, which was a good 2-3 years ago. So I guess the point is that these high-end controls, they are high-end. They do take a long time, but that's part of the process. And we have mentioned before that people, particularly within NDIS, you can kind of get on the negative Nancy bandwagon a little bit and go, oh, this is not worth it. And they're just saying no to everything, and everything's too hard. But with high-end controls, it's very well justified. We've seen all the elements. We've spoken to people in the past like Nick and I can't remember the other lady now. Talking about like all the different things you need to consider. And even Jamien was also talking about that, not just braking and accelerating, back support, getting in and out, just docking your wheelchair and being able to transfer from that into the seat of the car. All of that is just a whole trial process. And some people just do 6 months of trialing just for that one movement, right? Yeah. And you've got 5, 6, 7, 8 different major movements in there. So it just takes time, and stick with it, because look at the end story of what Jamien was talking and selling, shouting.
Yeah, and I think that's the big takeaway is it may have taken a long time, but it goes back to our first takeaway, that freedom and independence and that mental health and the impact that it's actually going to now have on his life. I look forward to catching up with him in the future and listening to what he's been able to do and what he's been able to achieve with that car. And if you want to know more about Jamien, and if you want to know more about his story, what we're going to do is we're going to share his contacts in the show notes down below. So make sure that you click on those, follow his Instagram page, and have a look at the photography that he's doing with his drone. It's pretty amazing stuff, and well, it's only going to get better, isn't it, with that car that he's got?
Yeah.
All right. So as we say at the end of every podcast, if you want to know more about what's going to be beneficial for you, make sure you set yourself up with a trial and get out there and see what's right for you.
That's right. Thanks very much, Brad. See you next time.
Thanks, Ali. See ya.
All right. That was...
Thanks for listening to the Drive Able podcast with Brad Williams and Ali Akbarian. If you like what you've heard, make sure you like, rate and subscribe. It really does make a massive difference. If you or anyone you know would like to share a story about driving with a disability, or you would like to get in contact, find the show notes, or find the resources mentioned in this episode, you can find us on Facebook. Just search @Drive Able Podcast for more information.